Hello and welcome to this week's Gadget Show Web TV and the Olympus E410. Now, Olympus claim it's the world's smallest digital SLR camera, which sounds pretty interesting. And all the excuse I needed to borrow one was when the producers of our esteemed programme asked me to take some pictures of some of our tested to destruction gadgets to decorate the walls of the studio. Now, one of the reasons why it is so small is that the sensor inside it is smaller than in the equivalent Nikon or Canon. That means everything can be smaller, right down to the lenses. In fact, if you buy the kit version of the camera, you get these two lenses covering a range of 28 to 300 millimeters in 35 millimeter equivalent terms, and it makes a very light and convenient package to carry around. Now, one way in which Olympus is like Nikon and Canon is that they provide you with a huge range of SLR accessories to do any sort of task you have in mind. And for this task, I thought the ideal ones were a 50mm f2 macro lens and this handy macro ring flash that fits on it, plus its associated control unit here. So I'm going to assemble it all together and get on with some of these shots. The ring flash gives very even close-up lighting because the light comes from all sides of the lens. And the short duration of the flash itself helps eliminate camera shake, which can be an extra problem on big close-ups. Now, one unusual feature of this camera is that abnormally for a digital SLR, you can also get live view through the screen rather than having to look through the viewfinder. And that should be pretty useful for this sort of situation. The only trouble is it's not quite like a digital compact because you have to focus manually. You can't actually use autofocus and live view at the same time. If you do want to autofocus, you press the shutter down, the screen goes black, it does its autofocusing and then comes back with the picture. So it's useful in this sort of circumstance, but not quite as useful as you'd probably expect. Another slight problem I'm having with it is the auto exposure on the flash seems to be very hit and miss. A lot of the time it's okay, but there is a sort of tendency to underexpose, sometimes quite seriously. I think so seriously it's beyond the tweaking abilities of most photo software, which is slightly irritating. I think for a lot of these shots I could be better off using long exposures on a tripod instead of the flash. But what about the E410 overall? Well, it's a vastly more responsive camera than previous Olympuses I've tried. It also delivers much better image quality. Even at 1600 ASA, there's virtually no noise, and the colours are very natural. By a small margin, I'd have to recommend the Nikon D40X we did in another web spot over this, because the Nikon has a bigger viewfinder with a better information display, it has a more consistent autofocus in low light, and also more consistent exposure that delivers printable images without any need for tweaking. But it's a close run thing.